This is one of the most asked questions that I get. There's a lot of data available online on how do you find an investor, how does an investor think, how do you create a pitch, how do you present to them, etc., etc. So you guys can find that kind of information online, or if you do want me to speak more about it, you can just drop in the comments and I'll probably make a video about getting into these topics. In today's video, I'll be talking about the misconceptions that a lot of founders have. The goal of today's video is to let you guys know how fundraising actually works, breaking a lot of misconceptions that you might have, so you get a clearer idea. This is based on my personal experience and the examples that I've seen around me. So in today's video, I'll be talking about 7 myths usually around fundraising and the reality behind these myths. What do you think pitching to an investor actually looks like? A lot of people glamorize the whole fundraising process and thinks that it looks like a set of Shark Tank, whereas the reality is not that. It's not a very high pressure situation where there are these people sitting in front of you and asking you random questions and you have to answer it there and there. So it's not like how you picture it. It's not like how they show it in Shark Tank. Actual fundraising actually looks something like this. It's actually just like a cafe chat where you're sitting across somebody and explaining or having a very casual conversation. So it's a very, very casual, non-glamorized environment. It's very comfortable. Most of the pitching actually do happen in cafes. Whatever you see on Shark Tank or these competitions for fundraising, it's all basically just a show. So actual fundraising is just basically a lot of one-on-one conversations over a period of time, whether you're doing it in person or on Zoom, where you're trying to convince the investor to write a check for you. Here is a diagram of an actual investor journey that a company had made. It took them 4 months to go through this whole process, where they had 160 meetings with different investors and 39 investors were convinced to invest with them, and the check ranged from 5,000 to a 2 lakh dollars. So it's not like just one investor writing you a fat check. This is how actual fundraising is and looks like. Basically just a bunch of conversations over and over again over a period of time, meeting a lot of stakeholders. Okay, now the second myth is people who have now an idea, they think that they need to do fundraising from day zero. So that's not how the best founders do it. How they do it is they would first create a small version of their idea. It could even be like a toy version, and collect some users for it before going to the investors. In today's day and time, it's easier than ever to create a working prototype and also to reach to potential users, gather some audience for your product. It gives you a leverage over a guy who's just with his pitch deck trying to raise money, and someone who's actually had his idea in motion. Investors want to jump on a motion train rather than just believing in something that you're trying to pitch to them. The next myth is a lot of people think that their idea should be extraordinary and completely out of the world. It should be very, very impressive for somebody to want to invest in you, but that's actually not the case. Your investors don't need to be impressed by the idea, but they need to be convinced about your idea. A lot of people have this misconception that if your startup is not fancy enough, unheard of, or new enough, revolutionary enough, then it's not a good space to be in. But that's absolutely not true. In the end of the day, you don't need anything fancy which sounds interesting. You need something that is useful to your consumers, and if it is useful to the consumers, it's going to work. It's totally worth giving it a shot. In fact, most of the big startups, when they pitched their idea for the first time, they sounded like absolutely terrible ideas. Airbnb was initially a marketplace which allowed you to rent a mattress at somebody's place. Terrible idea. DoorDash, when they started out, they wanted to start a delivery just for the suburbs in the time where delivery just does not exist. But investors get it. They're smart people, they see your vision, they see potential. So they are not looking at getting impressed. In fact, it might averse them if you're trying to impress them too hard, because that's not why they are there. They're there to, uh, like how you are, to build a useful product for people. The bottom line is that you need to be convinced about what you want to do, and before going to the investors, it could just be convincing in your head, right? But you need to go out there and speak to a sample set of people to understand if it makes sense to them also. Okay, so now the next myth that I want to talk to you guys about is that raising money is complicated, slow, and very taxing. And the reason is that from an outsider, if you are not a part of the startup world and just stepping into it, we read about Flipkart's acquisition, we read about Swiggy's fundraise. So we figure that it's a very, very big game, and it intimidates us. We feel that this probably could not be for us, because when you're just starting out, your concerns are whether or not I should pay for hosting, do I really need email marketing? So thinking of like 100 million in round seems a little more far-fetched. The reality of it is that these are series A and B rounds, they're not your pre-seed seed rounds. So when these companies were small and they just started out, they get like about 500k to 1 million at best to start off, but that's not glamorizing, that's not big enough, that's not newsworthy enough. So those we don't get to read those kind of news very often. We see these really big numbers, we see these glamorized companies investing in India. That's not how it is. You don't need to raise that kind of money in the start of your career. Most of the investing actually happens when in seed round and pre-seed round, where the amount is usually smaller, because unless you've built a business, nobody's going to invest that kind of money in you, which happens in seed A and seed B. It's just that that kind of information from pre-seed to round B is not publicly there for you to glamorize upon or consume upon. So that's why the perception. So don't go on the news, don't build your perception around the news that you read and the stories that you hear. It is glamorized, and it's actually sometimes not even true, the kind of magnitude that they show. The best thing to do is meet startups, meet people who are building startups. There are networking events that happen, so you can ask these questions when you're meeting people. Ask them how did they go about in the first round, their pre-seed round, and what was their grind, how much did they get to invest. So you would get a more realistic idea of what is happening rather than what the media gives you. Okay, the next myth is networking. I think when you will see the startups in India, you'll see that most of the founders go to an IIM, IIT, and all of them talk about the value of the network that they gained as an alumni of these institutions. Yes, there is no denying the advantage that you would have when you go to these institutions, but if you are somebody who doesn't belong to this kind of institution, you don't have that kind of network you can leverage at work or in your social circle, that's still okay. One of the key factor you would see if of an alumni who has gone to an IIM or an IIT is yes, they do get a foot in the door, because if you're reaching out to somebody who has gone to the same institution, they would give you the time to hear you out. But in the end, it's just confidence. If you're confident enough to pick up a conversation with somebody, if you're confident enough to reach out to somebody, to be persistent enough to have a conversation, you too can get the foot in the door. You need not have the kind of network in your vanity already. That can be built, it's not a big deal. Especially in today's time, it's as simple to find who these people are. You just have to, it's just a Google search away, or you can find these people on LinkedIn. For people who already have the network, it's just easy access, because they already know of these people, so picking up a conversation becomes easier for somebody. But for somebody who doesn't have the access, it's your first step would be to find who would be the right person for you to have a conversation with. These people are very easy to find on LinkedIn, and then maybe you can attend the same events that these people do, or you can just message them. It's how you approach which is what is going to get you a response rather than anything else. So don't worry if you don't have a network. It can always be built, and everybody wants to make money in the end of the day. And you're talking sense, you're talking something which is going to benefit the other person, they would definitely listen to you. All right, which brings me to my last point, which is rejection. So a lot of startups, when they get rejected by one or two initial round of investors, they feel that their startup is not good enough, which is not true. There's enough data to prove this. If you're persistent, you only need those few set of people from all the people that you approach to believe in your product and invest in your idea. So if you believe in it, if you're convinced about your idea, initial few rejections is given. It's obvious, it happens with everybody. That's no reason to believe that the startup is not good enough. And the final myth that most of the startup founders have, and some of them manage to break through, is this isn't for you. The reality is that there is no secret sauce to running a startup. In the end, at the crux of it, it is just perseverance, is hard work, is just going at it day in day out. And somebody is telling you this isn't for you, and you believe in the idea, you've seen something, and whatever was the reason for you to start out, keep reminding yourself of that reason, and good luck. So that's it. If you have any questions about fundraising, how to invest, how to find investors, you can always get in touch with me. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. If you've liked the video, please like and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for listening.